I will get started and say that my name is Greg Colati. I come from the Connecticut Digital Archive, which is headquartered at the University of Connecticut. I'll tell you a little bit more about the CTDA. I want to tell you a little bit about myself first. I started out, I was a history major in school. I got a graduate degree in history from Trinity. Yay! And I taught high school for 10 years. And a friend of mine and I worked with a program to teach American history using primary source documents. And I got to work with primary source documents a lot, and then I decided, wow, I like primary source documents better than I like teaching school. Because, you know, they're never late. You know? they're just there whenever you need them. No, actually, so I went into archives. I started working in traditional archives with paper and all that kind of stuff. And then around the turn of the last century, around in the late 90s, by accident, I got hooked up with people who were starting to use this internet thing. And they had something called the World Wide Web, which when I first saw what was that called? Netscape? Does anybody know? Netscape? Everybody know a Netscape browser? Right, okay. And it's like, whoa, there's pictures. This is going to turn itself off. Sorry. I'll have to change my settings for a second. I said this is like sliced bread, right? This is like the best thing ever because you can connect people to resources. I'm sorry, I'm trying to tell my thing not to put itself to sleep. But that obviously didn't work, did it? What have I done? Now I'm going to do something really crazy. It's like I pull the thing out. Wow. How can that happen? There it goes. I'm sorry, this is... you get this crazy stuff. Okay, and I said this is the greatest thing since sliced bread because you can connect to people, you can show people stuff without having to be there. I worked in an archive, literally, that had an iron door, like an iron grate. It was very decorative and historic and all kinds of things like that, but it was still an iron door. And that was pretty darn intimidating. Wow, this is really disappointing.
Would you like me to run and get some help, perhaps?
I can't even imagine what that help would be. I can run this from your machine.
Okay.
It will take me a minute. You can just plug it in however you'd like.
Okay.
While she's doing that, I'll continue my life story. And I thought this is a great way to get archives out of behind the iron door and into people's hands. In those days, it was really hard. I remember that I was ecstatic that we had a 12-second video on our website, right? And that it took us weeks to render it and do all these things and get it up, and it was 12 seconds. Now we have 1 and 1.5 hour video movies on the CTDA that people look at and don't even think about. Okay, I have to log into something. No idea what's going to happen. So I went into digital archives. I went into digital archives and kept doing it. And 10 years ago, I came to the University of Connecticut where they wanted to build a digital archive, and they already had a really Forward thinking for its time project called Connecticut History Online, if any of you remember that. CTDA is the successor of Connecticut History Online. And today I want to talk to you about what I call strategies for finding the needle in the haystack at ctdigitalarchive.org, which is our website. This is exactly the opposite of everything we've talked about so far, all right? This is getting into the weeds. This is like, okay, you need a primary source. Okay, how hard is that? Well, the CTDA is like visiting 80 institutions at once. These are just a few of the institutions. We have Historical Society, museums, galleries, public libraries. We actually have a lot of public libraries. Academic institutions all use the CTDA framework to preserve and make available the digital content. There are over 3 million objects on all subjects, not just about Connecticut. So I made this yesterday, and they did the search, and it was like, when you search for nothing, you get everything. 3,456,223. Oh my God. How do I find anything in a database of 3 million objects, right? That's the problem, okay? It's daunting and intimidating, and the CTDA is not the place to start your research. It's actually the place to go after you've done all the things that we've talked about, that you've defined a thesis, that you've got names and places and events and people in your mind already, so that you can go and find them. Because the CTDA is an archive, it is not an exhibit or a museum, right? It is just all the stuff. We have stuff, the earliest stuff from the 1600s, the latest stuff from literally last week. But the good news is that we're open 24/7, even holidays. Anytime, anywhere that you have access to an internet connection, you can have access to the content of the CTDA. So if you live in Old Saybrook and you want to find something in Litchfield, you can do it. You don't have to drive across the state. All right. Now, there's not everything in here. There's 3 million things. 3 million things seems like a lot. It is a drop in the bucket of all the historical material that's available in this state or around. I mean, it just is. It's not very much. But we're open 24/7, even holidays. What you don't get from the CTDA is that personal interaction that you get when you go visit a historical society or a museum, where you go and they will put on a thing for you. That's really great, okay? Not everybody can get there. Not everybody has the opportunity, right? So how in the world do I find anything in a database of 3 million things, 80 different institutions all at once? And I have to warn you about this. 80 different institutions doing things 80 different ways. Every institution has its own way of describing things, its own way of organizing things, right? That's hard. What we try to do with the CTDA is make a attempt to what we call normalize all this stuff, so that you can find things from many different places in one place. So the CTDA is organized like an archive, which means that it's primarily organized by owner and collection, not by topic, not by subject, okay? It has very limited subject browsing, and we'll look at that in a minute when we do our little demo. As I said, the metadata is contributed by owners, so it is not uniform. It's not like going to your library catalog where they insist that these subject headings are the same everywhere in every place, right? One institution might call something a fork, and the other institution might call it a, what do they say in The Little Mermaid?
Trident.
Oh, Thingamajig.
Right, right? I might call it a thingamabob. Right. They may do that, and that makes it harder. But you do have content for many organizations all in one place. There are strategies you can use to find things in the CTDA. But again, this is the raw material of history. It is not finished exhibits. Okay, how many people know the difference between an index and a catalog? Oh, the answer's on the wall, right? When you go to the library, you use a card catalog, and it has information about whole things, right? It's about the book, right? And the CTDA is an index, mostly. And you can search inside the book, inside any printed document or any document that's transcribed for words in full text. Everything that has letters in the CTDA is indexed in full text. So if I do a search for something, I can find not only, like slavery here, and I'm sorry this is small, but I can find documents where the word slavery was used, okay, on page 87. And I can bring you right to page 87, even if I don't know that book existed ahead of time, right? So it's a bit of both. There's full text searching on all text and metadata. We have facets, I'm not going to trip over in here, right, that are very much library catalog kind of things, like what's the topic? Here are some topics. Slavery, African Americans. Well, I guess I can read it from over here. African Americans, other things like that. And then it's sorted by relevance. Okay, so that the things that come to the top are usually the things that are most pertinent to your search. And relevance is based on, does this word occur in the title? Does it occur in the metadata? And does it occur in the full text? If it gets all three, it's way at the top. Okay? So we'll look at that. I might do a search here for tobacco, which, I don't know, they have tobacco in Connecticut. And I see something at the front that says Woodford, Chester, Connecticut Valley Tobacco. And I go, oh, that looks kind of interesting. I'm going to see what that's all about. And I get there and I find it's an oral history transcript. And I see, it's a little hard to see in this reproduction, but in these little purple spots, it shows you the word tobacco wherever it occurs. And these little markers tell you every page that the word tobacco appears on in this document. And if I backed out to the whole thing, when I went to any document in that search, I get tobacco. Good news, bad news, and we'll see how we have to think about this. So let's start with these. We'll search for Silas Dean, famous Connecticut guy. I get 84,067 objects. Okay, let's start with one and see see which ones are good. No, you're not going to do that, right? Now, what this catalog does, or this index does, when I type Silas Dean, it does an OR search. Do we know what an OR search is? So anything that has Silas or Dean. So I could get stuff from Silas Smith, Charles Dean, Sally Silas, all that kind of stuff. It's all going to be in there. So what I can do is I put quotes around it, okay? And quotes around it forces the index to search for Silas Dean in that order exactly that way. And so if I spell Silas Dean's name wrong, I'm going to get 0, right? So that's a strategy. Don't just type something in, use quotes. And you can also use what are called Boolean operators. Does anybody know what Boolean operators are? Yes? Good? Yes?
And or not.
And or not, right? So if I want Silas Dean, but not his sister, Sally Dean, I could have Silas and Dean, not Sally. And we'll see an example of that as we go along. Right, and then I can look at things like the material type, which is here, which is one of our facets, which comes from the metadata. And I see something that's interesting. Sound recordings non-musical. Oh, maybe Silas Dean gave an interview when he was older, right? Because I'm only in middle school. And I think that recordings existed forever. No, we're a little smarter than that. But I do find out that I have a podcast from the Office of the State Historian about who paid for the American Revolution. And it talks about, here it is over here, here's Silas Dean right there. Okay, and so now I can listen to this, and if I'm interested in that sort of thing, I can listen to this, right? And it wasn't really very hard to sift through 7,000 objects if I have some sense of what I can and can't do. Let's try something a little less precise and type frontier, because I know one of the themes is frontiers, right? So I type frontier, woohoo, I'm gonna get like cowboys, Indians. No, I don't, because we're in Connecticut, right? And what do we know about Connecticut? Frontier communications. Have you ever heard of frontier communications? Right, you type frontier in the CTDA and you're gonna get hundreds, and how many? 10,923 objects, most of them about frontier communications, right? So typing like really, really general terms in the CTDA is probably a bad strategy. I can also search by type if I'm really looking for things. So I can say, here's my Boolean operator. I'm searching, maybe I'm doing research on Jews in Connecticut or Jews in America or something like that. I can say, oh, do we have any oral histories on those? I put oral history in quotes, meaning it has to be exactly that, and Jews or and anything else, right? And I come back with 117. 117, I can deal with 117. I can also use some of these other facets to say, well, if it's oral histories and Jews, and I have a topic, right, and I open that up, and I say, ooh, topic, World War I. Yeah, I'm doing Jews in World War I. That's it. I might have 5 things or 6 things. So I've gone from 3 million to so-and-so to so-and-so to a few that I can really understand. So let's take a look. Now, let's say we're getting the hang of it a little bit, right? So here we are, we're in Connecticut again, right? I type Connecticut Yankee into the CTDA. What might I get a lot of?
Twain.
I'm sorry?
Twain?
Yeah, we'll get Mark Twain, right? It's like, I don't want that. I want Connecticut Yankee power plant. So I type Connecticut Yankee in quotes and a word that will sort of keep Mark Twain out of this, and atomic. And I get just 100 objects, all right, about Connecticut Yankee and atomic power or atomic. I see one here that looks interesting, and you look at that, and its title is a bunch of numbers. What is that? In general, that means it's a page of a book, okay? And Connecticut Yankee is mentioned on this particular page. Most book pages don't have titles in the CTDA because they're loaded in bulk and they're just numbered, all right? But I know that's a page of a book, so this looks interesting. There looks like there's a picture of it on there. I'm gonna take a closer look, and I see that this is from the Architectural and Historical Survey of Haddam, Connecticut, part of the UConn's collection of architectural surveys of the state. And I look, this is interesting, and I zoom in, which I'm pretending to do here, and I get a very, very concise history and significance architecturally in the built environment, because that's what these people are doing, of the Connecticut Yankee atomic power plant. And of course, Connecticut Yankee and atomic is highlighted everywhere I see it. So what works best? General topics? No. Have a fairly well-defined search terms before you start. Use ands, ors, and nots to create some precision. And you can build up searches. So I could search Connecticut Yankee and see what I get. Then I go, okay, I'll add and to that and add something else. And I can add and again, and or, and not. I have a big, huge string if I want. Index searching is more useful in this collection than catalog searching. So in other words, searching through the texts is actually easier online than it is searching through books that are physical, right? So how long would it have taken me to find, I don't know, the word slavery in that one document? Who knows? So it's important to understand the uses and the limits of the catalog and the index in the CTDA. I added this slide just a few minutes ago when we were talking about citations, and to let you understand how you cite things from the CTDA. There is no download citation button in the CTDA. It's like rats, I know. We are working on the next version of the CTDA. It's supposed to come out in January. We may, I didn't think of it till today, but I'm going to we're going to have a citation button so people can use it easily. But what you do get is what's called a permanent unique identifier. And it always starts with this term, hdl.handle.net. That's because the CTDA is registered with the Global Handle Registry, which means every one of these links is a global and permanent identifier and will always be resolvable, even if we change the servers that we run CTDA on. So there won't be dead links. And if the whole CTD goes away, then we have more things to worry about than just that. Another thing that you can do is in the downloads button on the side, you can download what's